This church looks very different today.
It is a sport that was primarily shaped by the patriarchy, built out of patriarchal structures.
Erotic pole dancing. Patriarchy lectures. This is exactly what happens when a church gets taken over by progressive activists. First glance, you'd think this is some far-left Green Party fundraiser, and she's just another political organizer. Nope. This is a church service. St. Nikolai Church. Small town in northern Germany. And the woman with the short haircut? That's the pastor.
Aber heute zu sehen, dass Frauen sich das zurückerobern und sowas auch noch in einer Kirche, ich finde das richtig cool.
This little masterpiece was featured by Germany's public broadcaster NDR. The headline asks, "Pole dance in church. Have we gone too far?" But don't worry. Aside from the spicy headline, the coverage itself is overwhelmingly positive, as is often the case when left-leaning public broadcasting reports on left-leaning issues and personalities. Let's continue.
I think that's really cool, and I think all of it is contained in the message we receive from God.
Oh yes, who doesn't remember those famous Bible verses about smashing the patriarchy with half-naked pole dancing in church? Maybe she's reading a different Bible, a revised edition, a more progressive translation.
During the service, Pastor Lisa Cohens does not dance on the pole herself, but she previously developed the choreography together with the dancer.
I mean, wow, this is painful to watch. Pure second-hand embarrassment. And the lighting, don't even get me started. This doesn't scream prayer and devotion. It screams something else. There's apparently zero hesitation turning a house of worship into something that looks like a nightclub. And it's not just mood lighting. They fire up a fog machine too.
Und vielleicht für Männer entwickelt. Aber heute zu sehen.
Come on, this has absolutely nothing to do with church anymore. And let's be honest, it has nothing to do with God either.
Lisa Cohens simply sees it as a form of dance. And dancing and church, why not?
Why not? That's the argument? Why not? Is that naive or just cynical? Why not isn't an argument. It's a rhetorical shortcut, a cheap way to avoid explaining anything. You don't defend your position. You just flip the burden. With that logic, I can justify anything. Porn in church. Why not? A swinger club in church. Why not? Drugs in church. Why not? See how that works?
Menschen sind gerne unterwegs irgendwie und feiern und tanzen eben gerne miteinander. Und ja, warum nicht auch in der Kirche?
Quote, "People love celebrating and dancing together. Why not in church?" Here's why. Because in Christianity, a church isn't a neutral event venue. It's a consecrated place, a house of prayer. Even I know that, and I'm not exactly a regular churchgoer myself. But a pastor? She should absolutely know that. Jesus literally drove merchants out of the temple because they were turning a sacred place into a marketplace. My house shall be called a house of prayer. If Jesus wouldn't tolerate merchants in the temple, do you really think he'd applaud half-naked pole dancing in the sanctuary? He wouldn't be clapping, saying, "Wow, what a bold move against patriarchy." A pastor should know that. Which makes me wonder whether this is about faith at all, or whether it's about pushing a very specific ideological worldview.
The message.
The female priest also runs a public social media account, and let's just say some of the content would raise eyebrows in many places if you're claiming to represent God. But the more interesting part is what she promotes, things like decolonized theology. That's the usual package: systemic oppression, climate narratives, intersectional frameworks. I won't unpack the whole thing here, you can Google it. But here's what really stood out. She also shared something called Church Service Feminist Day of Struggle. It's on YouTube, and guess what? Once again, exotic pole dancing inside a church.
SS, love, sex, ladies, no regrets. B.
I'm starting to notice a pattern. Someone here seems to be mixing personal interests with professional responsibility and then calling it brave and progressive.
Für mich hat es auch sehr viel damit zu tun, dass man gesellschaftliche Bilder und Normen durchbricht.
Quick question. When was the last time you saw a feminist day of struggle with pole dancing inside a mosque?
Never.
Exactly. That would be bold. But somehow, that kind of boldness never seems to travel in that direction. However, back to the female pastor. I seriously doubt this is about preserving Christian teaching. It looks far more like preaching a progressive zeitgeist. And if you turn every institution into a political or sexual statement, backlash shouldn't come as a shock.
Doch im Netz hat sie für ihre ungewöhnliche Art, Hobby und Beruf miteinander zu vereinen, viel Hetze abbekommen.
Durchgeschaut bei diesen Kommentaren und irgendwie auch gelesen, ja, wie viel Quatsch da auch bei ist, also wie viel unbegründete Kritik irgendwie dabei ist.
We are told they received a lot of hate. Interesting, because not a single example of that hate is shown. If there's so much of it, that should be easy. Instead, everything critical is labeled hate speech, unfounded criticism, and baseless arguments. But what exactly were those arguments? We are not told. Wouldn't want to disrupt the positive narrative. Does the NDR piece include a serious counter-argument? Any real criticism? Do dissenting voices get airtime? Of course not. Public broadcasting in Germany tends to save its toughest scrutiny for conservatives and right-wing topics.
On a normal Sunday morning, around 20 people attend the church service. But for this one, so many showed up that there was no space left.
Yeah, I believe it. Otherwise you'd have to go to Hamburg's red light district to see that kind of performance, and that usually comes with certain financial and social costs. By the way, I already have an idea for how the offering plate could be handled at events like this. Let's just say revenue would probably increase. And I'm pretty sure this won't be the last event of this kind. That's about as certain as amen.
Dass von nun an jeden Sonntag Disco-Beats den Herrn Lobpreisen, sieht Lisa Köhns noch nicht so recht kommen. Aber die positive Resonanz könnte zu weiteren ungewöhnlichen Gottesdiensten führen.
Progressive movements don't stop halfway. They keep applying pressure until the institution bends, and their worldview becomes the rule. God becomes a woman. Jesus becomes queer and black. Mary and Joseph become refugees. Everything gets reinterpreted through the lens of modern ideology. And then we wonder why membership numbers are collapsing. When a church becomes just another political platform, people leave. I think a certain US president once summarized this dynamic rather bluntly.
Everything woke turns to shit, okay? It's true. It's true. Look.
That's it for today. What do you think? Is this modernization? Or have we completely lost the plot here in Germany? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, hit like and subscribe. See you next time!